Rob wants to know how many got extensions. That would be me. That would be Adam and I, for sure. Hi, everybody. Christine from Raymond. Very happy to be back here. It feels like 3 years we blinked, and we all look the same, if not younger. I mean, that's what I think. Raymond has been doing very well. We've helped a lot of people through the pandemic, filing all these various COVID stimulus. There's one more that's out there that still has funding.
Really?
It's called the Employee Retention Credit, ERC. Lots of fraud and misinformation about it, but we know it well. So if we can help you with that. Not with that. Doing it the right way. You are eligible if you have employees, if you had either some business loss or some business disruption, and business disruption is a very broad category during the stimulus, during the COVID pandemic.
Is it money that you get, or is it a lot?
You get up to $26,000 per employee.
Whoa.
So yeah, and it's still funded out there, so we're happy to help you with that. Raymond's doing well. During the pandemic, we rebranded our office in Ann Arbor, so if you want to come visit us, we have bright blue walls, we have glass offices, we have throw pillows everywhere, we have stand-up desks. We are doing our best to tackle the staffing challenges. We're giving our associates full flexibility, but secretly hoping and praying they all want to come to the office and work with us. Our office is behind Red Robin on Briarwood Circle. So very happy to be back here. Rob is helping me facilitate the next Leaders Connect, Women in Leadership. So I'm excited about that. So I look forward to seeing you all back next month.
Tell you got a couple exciting people too. So
we're still putting the panel together, but Joanne Rao, who is the president of Chelsea State Bank, is coming and spent a long career in the Ann Arbor market for Fifth Third. And Christine Hawkinson, who led several big life science companies in Ann Arbor through to exits, is coming and talking with us too. Still looking for maybe a healthcare or a nonprofit leader. So if anyone has those ideas, we would reach out to Rob, and he and I will work it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to have you back. I thought you were going to wear your leather jacket. Chris got a giving women leather jackets when you got your.
Right.
What year was that?
Up until the early 90s.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Then now you can go back. Right?
Yeah.
Let's see, Rob. You want to come up and talk about how your guys doing? So let's talk about your group and what's up.
All right. Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Rob. I'm with the Surnow. Hi, everyone online. Thank you for that. I'm Rob Crockmull. I'm with the Surnow family, the Surnow company. We are a third generation real estate development and investment company. Family owned and operated. We manage and lease and develop all of our own properties. And we're happy to have a couple of properties here in Ann Arbor, one in the south part of town in a research flex R&D building. And we're working with Ann Arbor's greatest companies to fill some space that we have there. Merit Network is a great company that rents from us, one of our customers, Center for Automotive Research, and we're about to announce a new 7,500 square foot user we're building out for right now. Got a little bit of space that we're currently building out, and we're gutting everything and getting it ready for the next generation of Ann Arbor's best research and development flex or med tech companies looking to rent some good office space. So hopefully I get to meet all of you and learn a little bit more about you. Thanks for coming.
How's rebound we did last time about real estate? What's the state? Are you guys bouncing back? Or?
So we're fortunate in that we have some of Michigan's what we consider to be some of the best boutique office and shopping center properties. We're really working with Michigan's great companies that are growing and thriving here versus some national companies don't quite know how to navigate the market right now. Michigan's great regional companies are figuring that out and doing really well. And so we're happy to work with them and provide the best real estate experience that we can.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, Rob, let me tell you, my new office is at 7,500 square foot. And based on what Chris says, I'm going to bring in about 100 employees. And you can do the math on that. You can pay the rent.
Some of the fingers do that.
And to Mike, David, you don't want to forget anybody. Mike? Oh, yeah, you got any Mike? Tell us who's coming this summer.
Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Mike
thanks
Cole.
for coming out. We've been sponsoring this program and working with Rob for many years, so just great to be here. Welcome you all here. I head up our innovation banking group, so been working with these folks at Sword Technology for a long time. They are one of the many hidden technology innovation-based company gems in town that most people don't know about. So excited to hear more about all their cool AI. Got a couple of colleagues here. Bill Maxbauer. Bill, you want to stand up for just a second? Bill's in our commercial real estate lending group. And Mary Hayes, I think I saw Mary here. Mary's back there. She's in our private banking group. And we just announced our Sonic Lunch lineup yesterday, so we're going to have live concerts downtown again this summer, June, July, and August every Thursday. Our first one will be May 25th. We got young artists and artists that have been around longer, like Los Lobos is going to be one of our artists this year, so it'll be a great time.
Did you get a Wolfpack?
No, I think we're going to have some former members there playing. Oh, yes, I think maybe. Yes, May Irwine will be playing. The Accidentals will be ending the show at the end of August. So, and Laith Al-Sadi, of course, will be back for his 16th year with we've been doing it for 16 years. He's been there every year. So come on down to Liberty Plaza downtown. Yep.
I know one of your artists is Laith
Al-Sadi.
Al-Sadi, and he did amazing job with
The Voice?
No,
the national anthem. That opening day for the Tigers. Yeah, that was
an amazing job.
Yeah. All right, thanks,
All
Rob.
right, okay.
My name is James Whitinger. I'm the owner of Office Evolution, and what we do is share office space. What I've learned over the last several months is what we really have to offer is an incredible business environment. So I'm going to try something a little different this morning. I'm going to ask anybody who's had a positive experience with Office Evolution to stand up right now. And then what I want you to do is, since we're here now, look at somebody you don't know right now and invite them back to our place. You like no, what I've learned is we have 28 different businesses. Everybody's in a different type of business. The environment's incredible. That's all I'm going to say. Talk to the people that stood up and I'll let them do the rest.
All right.
Of course, Zingerman is a sponsor, so they provide the space here for us. And we work together, like Mike provides the food, pays for the great food, so be sure that we don't leave any, because if we leave any, it gets tossed, so bring a few back to the office. Well, great. So with this group, we have some of the best community support, and really excited about that. Really feel good, and it's good to be back. How many like being back live here? I don't see any masks anymore. I think you can still use it. People are still catching this thing, so be careful. I got a couple other people, just real quick, that I asked to speak. Amy, are you out there? Amy Sell? Amy, could you pitch what you do real loudly?
Oh, sure. Hi, I'm Amy Sell. I have a recruiting and human resources firm. And I know there's some people right now that are going through career transition, so we do offer a free job search webinar, and you can feature profiles and help make connections. And speaking of talent, I'm here with my husband, Bill Jukora. He's an environmental health and safety expert, if anybody has any questions on that.
I thought his full-time job was taking care of you, and Amy and I worked together at MEDC and at Spark. You started at Spark, and when Mike Finney left, unfortunately Mike Finney died a couple of years ago already. But then Amy and I left there, and Amy started a great company here in town. It's been a great service here. But actually, and I had a couple people who are looking a little bit. Can you just kind of stand up and give your guys and gals and give a pitch? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eric. I've known Dr. Arbor for many years, and I work here at the Zaintez. A couple of my friends work here. My pleasure is just working with the student veteran community. So I have 2 veterans who are able to be here. They've done this really hard as a substitute teacher. They're recent graduates. John Marshall Zaintez. These are amazing young men.
You guys stand up.
Stand up. So we got Dave. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He's a graduate of Oakland University, also a master's degree in UX UI from the School of Information here in Cushing, which is amazing. So he's really interested in that sort of data science kind of thing. We got Joel. He's graduated with a bachelor's in communications, and he also took the capital sales track, and he also took the Chinese language track. So he's got a multifaceted kind of Renaissance man thing going. I will say Dave's one of the most loyal guys I've ever been with, like 6 or 7 years. Joel worked so hard on a project for me that I thought people were stealing from me, because he was getting so much work done. I was like, that's how hard it works. And then I've also got Michael Cosmo, who is another guy who graduated. He's in the data science as well, and very close to this AI thing. He's a really hard worker as well. So if you want, I've got his resume. He couldn't be here. He's working. These guys are amazing and very sort of old school in their work ethic. So if you're interested and you're hiring, these would be your guys. Thanks very much, Rob.
Credit to Eric Fritz, Dr. Eric Fritz, who for years, he is a veteran for Navy Commander, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, Navy Commander. And did any of you, were any of you on the ship? No, I've seen it. But Eric has done an amazing service to the community for many years of working with vets. Some of them have not had any university work, and I have a cousin who, through Eric, started at a community college, and his dream was to go to Michigan, and I think if he gets some good grades at the community college, he would get into Michigan. And then, Eric is sponsoring people like that all the way through to these gentlemen, and it's really helpful because, if you get out, it's a really difficult transition, so. Thank you, Eric. Let's give him a hand. Couple others. Yes. Ryan, my old friend Ryan. Yeah. Come on up here, Ryan. You're close enough. You can use the mic. Ryan and I worked together a few years ago.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah.
So, hi everybody. I'm Ryan Muir. Stand out in front. Most recently, I was VP of Enterprise Sales for Customer Experience and Commerce at Merkle, which is a Dentsu company. We were the 4th largest media agency and tech supplier on the planet. Before that, I've helped grow many agencies and things in Ann Arbor. I helped grow Dennison Consulting, where I worked with Rob. It feels like about 20 years ago. And then helped grow Grand River, and then most recently Human Element. I'm back in Ann Arbor. Figuring out this is what I really love to do. The big gigantic tech world is brutal. What I like to do is grow agencies and grow things in Ann Arbor. Be the first one in, help professionalize services, help bring sales and account management online, and really figure out how to do things the right way. I reached out to Michael and I was like, man, I need a place where I can have a soul again. Like the big tech world, kind of soulless, kind of harsh, right? It's part of the deal, but really Ann Arbor is a special place. What we all do here and what we've built here over the years is special, and I'm looking forward to getting kind of back into the community and figuring out how to make Ann Arbor grow. So, thank you.
Having worked with Ryan, he's a very talented guy, a very hard worker, and a hard player too. I mean, you can do stuff after work, right? So I think people who are looking really could benefit from Ryan. Ryan, you ought to hang out with David's place at Office Evolution. You meet a lot of people there, and you work these space for you. So that's good. And you can if you're looking for something with 7,500 square feet, I know that too. Sorry, your own company. Jerry, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
My name is Jerry Roscoe. Unlike some of the other folks here, my connection with Rob and trouble safety is everywhere. The reason I said that is the fellow who was the chair of my wife's committee and Rob went to college together, so it goes back to me. Anyway, I'm looking for work for the advancing title executive and residents of entrepreneur residents, which basically means that I get to help people who want to start tech companies. I've done that before. I've been CEO of several tech startups. So they're going to need. I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Nice. another very seasoned, very intelligent, very useful to a company. So Jerry, I hope you find some connections and certainly connect with Amy. I think that's always really good for you. Okay. Yeah, good, all right. I think, is anybody else? I see, let's see. Okay, Stacy, you know, Stacy just launched a coaching program. You want to just give a quick shout out to ex-Google. I think, anybody else from Google here at the, yeah, well, some people signed up.
The soulless big tech, right? No, thanks, Dr. Rob. I've known Dr. Rob for many years. He was actually my executive coach, and made you all love being an executive coach. So I left Google at the end of last year, before all this layoff stuff, to start my own business. And so I'm doing executive coaching and leadership development, and my specialty has really been around women. And so launching a bunch of women's wellness retreats and group coaching projects. I'm just happy to be here. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Stacy. And Stacy, I also will say, is a very talented person. I worked with her when she was a sales director for Google. She was on the road all the time, right? Toronto. She was doing, you have Canada as your territory. So she did, you know, Google brought you Google to the Yukon. I think that was it. So anyway, I mentioned anybody else. Anybody else got something really interesting on that they want to just shout out about? Yes, Phil.
I'm Phil Barr. I've doing a lot of things around town for many years, but I currently have a group which we are doing some most sophisticated healthcare data security stuff in complex situations, and we're looking for another client.
Thanks, Phil. And Phil and I, again, go way back, at least 30 years. I was thinking about, you know, when people tell me what they've done and when I met them, it's crazy, but next year it was 50 years that I graduated from Arbor. It's really amazing. 50 years. In Arbor, I spent over 40 years here, and it's wonderful to talk to people, talk about how we've raised our kids, and you know what a great community this is. So I'm very grateful to live here, and very grateful for great companies. I'm going to make the transition to talk about a great company, which is Sword Technology. And they are a straight out of the University of Michigan 25 years ago. Yep. You've been with them that time?
No, I've been there 15 years. Jack has been there 23 years.
And I was talking to Jack, and you know, this new thing, artificial intelligence, that they were talking about, they've been doing it for 25 years. 25 years. And I learned about it when I was coaching Mike, and it's fascinating. They use a lot of it, and they'll explain where they use it. Mike is the CEO. Yep. And Jack, you got a title?
Director of Command and Control.
Director of
Command and Control.
Command and Control. We got two commanders here.
Yes.
Only one in control.
We're much better at commanding and control.
So I'm going to let you guys start, and I think that's you got some pretty exciting things for us. So let's turn you over and go from there.
Great. Thank you, everybody. So excited to be here.
I'm going to start with intros in a second, but my goal is to do a couple things. One is inform you a little bit. So obviously, you probably all been following in the press. Artificial intelligence is a field that is like transforming on a weekly, monthly basis, right? And so I've been doing this, as Dr. Rob said, for a long time, and like I'm clinging by my fingernails to the state of the art right now, which is really exciting. So first, I want to hopefully blow your minds a little bit. You know, show you some stuff that may like. You know, you're going to be, I hope, talking about this to your friends and family for, you know, the rest of the weekend, is my hope. Another thing is try to introduce to you some ideas about how AI actually practically can be used in your business today. We are a business that does AI, but we are also a consumer of some of the AI tools out there. And in some ways I'll talk about, I personally am a consumer of some of the AI tools out there. And then third is from a more personal perspective, right? There are some potentially challenging ways that AI is being used, particularly in social media. And I want to kind of, you know, open your eyes a little bit to that and give you a sense of what you need to be careful for. So, quickly, sword technology, as Dr. Rob said, we spun off of the Artificial Intelligence Lab at Michigan about 25 years ago. We do AI for the Defense Department. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, thank you for your service. We build AI tools to put in the hands of those service members to keep them safe, make them better informed, and make them more capable of their missions. And we tend to do the more cutting edge kind of stuff, which is really fun stuff. Our focus are command and control, which is the area that Jack leads. Autonomy and robotics, a lot of work on AI that's out there on robots doing cool stuff. And then training and simulation is our third big area. So with that, I'm going to start. So I'll do a quick introduction. I'm Mike Van Lent. Got my PhD here in Michigan. Moved out to California and worked at the University of Southern California for a while. Came back to Michigan, joined SourTech originally as chief scientist, and then became CEO. And as I like to say, I got two big stacks of papers in my home office. There's all the AI research stuff, and then there's all the business stuff. And every day I'm like, all right, which stack am I going to pull for today? So I've told this next story many times to many people, but I have not had the chance to tell it with my mom here. My mom's actually in the audience.
My mother,
Margie, is Grandma Margie to my children. Her grandmother was also Grandma Margie to her. When her grandmother, my great-grandmother, passed away, I actually knew my great-grandmother, they left a little bit of money, and my mom, my grandmother, and grandfather spread that around the whole family. And this means each member of the family got a couple $1,000s to do something. The direction was use this money to do something that'll change your life. I used that money to buy my first computer when I was in high school. And I bought that computer because I wanted to make it think, right? And this was at a time when having a computer at home was like the weirdest thing in the world. Like, I was the kid who took typing in high school. And everyone was wondering why I was taking typing. Right? Typing was, if you're going to be an administrative assistant, you take typing. And here I was, in the typing class, and everyone was going to do computers someday. And now here we are. I don't even want to count how many years later, and I made a career out of computers and artificial intelligence, and it all started with that thing. Reading will end in 10 minutes. I don't want that. We'll figure it out. I'm going to let Jack introduce himself, and then we'll talk for a second about ChatGPT.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Jack Zaientz. As it's already been said, I've been with SourTech for 23 years. My background is in human-computer interaction, so we're talking about UI, UX. I was hired on to SourTech 23 years ago because AI systems were confusing and hard to understand, and clearly I'm terrible at my job because 23 years later they're still weird and hard to understand. But that's just job security. Right? I'd like to take a quick poll, if I could. Mike's going to talk about ChatGPT. There's this new wave of software that's coming out. My poll is not who's heard of them, but who in the room has used ChatGPT or DALL-E or one of those images for a real task? Okay, look around the room. That's about a quarter, almost half. So when Mike is talking about this, I just want you to keep in mind that we're not talking about the future. We're actually talking about yesterday, right? Because you're not doing it today. I was recently had the chance to be a guest lecturer on AI at a class at the university, and I did the same poll with the students. You would not be surprised that 100% went up. And I asked them what they were doing with it. Not one single person used the tool for the same thing as the student next to them. One student used it as a glorified search engine. Another student who was a filmmaker used it because she hadn't had experience with TV scripts and said, I'm going to give it a prompt about my script and see what it does, and then I'll make it better from there. Try to think about the last time you saw technology that enabled people to do such wildly different things. Cell phones, the internet, right? That's the context to think about the things that are happening right now. It's that kind of scale.
Great. So we have, this is actually 3 members to our panel. There's 2 of us, and there's an AI system on the panel. So ChatGPT is an AI system. I don't know if people can read. So this is just a web page that's connected to ChatGPT, and I can type whatever I want down here in the send messages, and it will respond. And I hope people can read this. If they can't, I'm going to ask Jack to read what ChatGPT says. So I'm just going to type in, say hello to the audience of a panel on AI.
Oops, I gotta hit the little send button.
So ChatGPT responded and said, "Hello and welcome everyone. As an AI language model, it's my pleasure to address this panel on AI. I'm here to answer any questions or concerns you may have about AI and its impact on society. Let's have a productive and insightful discussion."
So now I'm just gonna type, please introduce. I'm typing live here. Please introduce yourself. I remember to. May have to read. There we go. Perfect.
Certainly. As mentioned earlier, I am ChatGPT, a large language model trained by OpenAI using the GPT 3.5 architecture. I was created to assist humans in generating human-like text, answer questions, and provide information on a wide range of topics. I have been trained on a vast corpus of text data and have the ability to understand natural language, recognize patterns, and generate text that is similar to what a human might produce. I'm excited to be here today and to be part of this discussion on AI.
So as we do the panel, I've got a couple slides, but I don't want to do a lot of slides. But I'll be typing some of the questions in, and we'll see how ChatGPT answers them. So, all right. So what is artificial intelligence? I always start with this slide.
A lot of people, the word artificial actually has two meanings. There's the fake meaning, but that's not actually the meaning that artificial intelligence uses. It's the other meaning, the made by humans, right? And intelligence, I could debate endlessly what the word intelligence means. I use ability to learn and apply knowledge to select actions in order to achieve goals. So artificial intelligence is a system that's made by humans to learn and apply knowledge to select actions and achieve goals. That's the definition of artificial intelligence that I hang my hat on. So how does something like ChatGPT work? And I don't know if you can see this, but basically all ChatGPT is doing is given a set of words, it's predicting what the best next word is after that, and then the one after that. So you all, I'm sure, have a cell phone. If you're texting, there's that place on the phone where it's like predicting what the next word you might want to type is, and you can just, press it instead of having to type it in. ChatGPT is just that on steroids, right? That's the exact same thing it's doing. The difference is it's got a much deeper model behind it. So what they've done is they've taken basically all of the text on the internet, and they built a very deep statistical model about if I see this sequence of words, what's the next couple words going to be, and then what are the next couple words after that, what are the next couple words after that. So what this shows, if you can't see, is the best thing about AI is its ability to blank. And the ChatGPT says that 4.5% of the words on the internet, the next word is learn, right? 3.5% of the time, the next word is predict. 3.2% of the time, the next word is make. Really? So that's really all it's doing, is it's saying, given this sequence of words and everything on the internet, what statistically is the next word to come? Now, there's a little bit of a trick there, because it turns out if you just use the highest probability next word, you end up with very stale, not very interesting sounding text. So they have to introduce a little bit of randomness to the system in order to keep it interesting. So they don't always pick the most probable next word. They have a factor that says sometimes we pick that, sometimes we go further down the list. And there's been a really interesting set of work on what's the right level of randomness there, right? And so they've tried different things, and the problem is it's hard to measure, like when you have good, interesting text. So really seriously, all they're doing is They'll set the randomness to 1 level. They'll generate a bunch of text. They'll have people read it and say, does this sound good? And if people say yes, you're closer to the right number. And if people say no, you gotta move the number. So it's a very kind of human-oriented evaluation mechanism because that's what they're trying to optimize to. So you see this phrase large language model, right? So underlying ChatGPT is a system that is what's called a neural network. It is very similar to the neural net. We all have a bunch of neurons in our brain. Rob knows this as a clinically trained psychologist.
Have less now than they did before.
We all do,
right? And this is breakfast, so no one's having a beer, but if you're having a beer, you can have less after that beer
than before. But basically, a neural net is just a bunch of connections where each connection has a number on it, and you're basically just flowing information down this path. So this is a very small neural net. Each of those arrows between dots is what has 1 number on it, and that's called a parameter, right? So if you count, there are 23 arrows in this picture on the left. That means that neural net has 23 parameters. ChatGPT has 175 billion parameters, right? So one of the advances that led to ChatGPT is they figured out how to ramp up the number of parameters and how to use the graphical processing units, GPUs that were invented for gaming originally, to train those very, very large systems. The other advance is just the availability of data on the internet. Before the internet, we didn't have access to almost infinite amount of text that we could do this statistical modeling over. So I love this example. So ChatGPT is what's called a generative AI system, right? It generates text. There are also generative AI systems that generate pictures, okay? And I'm doing this for 2 reasons. One is I want to show you, I don't know why this keeps doing this.
Ask ChatGPT.
Yeah, I should ask ChatGPT. Cancel. Okay. So there are also generative AI systems that can generate pictures, okay? And I do this for 2 reasons. One is I want to show you what a generative AI system that generates pictures can look like. 2 is it's a great example of how the number of parameters, which I defined on the previous slide, influence the quality of what you get, okay? So here's the prompt. So this is a system that came out of, I believe, Microsoft Research. And it wants you to create, it's asked to create a portrait of a kangaroo wearing an orange hoodie and blue sunglasses, standing on the grass in front of the Sydney Opera House, holding a sign on its chest that says, "Welcome, friends." So this is carefully chosen to be sufficiently specific that it's unlikely that there's just a picture out there on the internet of this, right? And the internet's huge, maybe there is, but the chances that there is specifically a picture of this on the internet is pretty small. And I have handouts of this that I'll hand out after I've done the big reveal. So the first one is 350 million parameters, okay? So how good a picture of this do we get for 350 million parameters? So I hope everyone can see this. If not, you'll see when I hand it out. So that's how good a picture you get, right? It looks weird, right? It's not quite right. Okay, so now if we go to 750 million parameters, what do we get? All right, it's getting better, right? It's definitely better, right? You can kind of tell that's a kangaroo, not some sort of weird dog. And you know, the orange hoodie is a little more there. The Opera House is looking better. So now what if we go to 3 billion parameters? So 3 billion parameters, it's starting to look pretty good, right? That's clearly a kangaroo. You got the Opera House. The sign isn't quite right, you know, there. So now what if we go to 20 billion parameters? So at 20 billion parameters, it's pretty dead on, right? I mean, that's a kangaroo, welcome friends, Opera House. Like, if you saw that, you know, you would wonder whether that was a real picture or whether that was actually, you know, generated. So the point is, A, you know, it's really interesting to see how the number of parameters improves things. B, we have reached a point in society where if you see a picture that looks real, you can't trust that that's a real picture, right? People are generating pictures, very, very, very high quality looking pictures that are completely synthetic, completely made up, and you no longer can trust what you see in a picture and a video. In fact, this is getting to the point where one of the organizations we do research for, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, they have a whole program on how to detect fake images, right? So this is becoming a real scientific challenge, and it's actually there's a little bit of a like an arms race going on between the synthetic generation systems and the detection systems. So, you know, it turns out NVIDIA, one of the companies that makes the processing units that do this kind of stuff, they're actually sufficiently concerned about this that they're looking into ways that they can put invisible watermarks in the synthetically generated images, so it'll be easier to detect. Jack, if you can look in here, I got some handout versions of this that we can hand out. Not everything in there is a handout, so. it's my reading folder that I also showed that.
Which knows me well enough to know I need very specific instructions.
Yes. That's called command, and now I'm sitting here watching to make sure the control part works. Yes.
When you talked about ChatGPT, we're doing the visuals like this. What software? What program?
DALL-E is the publicly available software. DALL-E. And so if you go on the internet and you search ChatGPT, you can find the ChatGPT website. There's a link that says try out ChatGPT, which is just what I did there. You have to sign up with an account, but ChatGPT is free, and then you can do what I'm doing, which is just type in and get responses. DALL-E, you have to pay a little bit for. I think, you know, you can get an account, you put in like $20 and it costs you a certain amount per image that you're generating. But DALL-E also is with a small fee publicly available. So, yeah. All right. So that was kind of the end of the lecture part of the talk. These are the questions that I gave Dr. Rob and we put out. Before we dive into this, again in the area of being caution, I wanna ask ChatGPT to do something, and then I'm going to check and see how well it was. So Dr. Rob, with your permission, I'm going to ask it to write a biography of you, and then we're going to see how much of your biography it gets right. So I'm going to hand this to Chad.
Are you going to tell them how long it should be?
No, it'll be a couple paragraphs usually. So I'm.
Tell us what you're typing?
Yeah. Yep.
So Mike is typing, write a biography of Dr. Rob Pasick, an executive coach and psychologist who lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
It's about right? All right, here we go. Whoops, I always do that. I gotta hit the, and I may have to shrink this down a bit because it's gonna be a little bit long.
Can you leave the Jackson prison part?
That's actually why I asked permission, is because you never know. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so here is ChatGPT's response. Dr. Rob Pasick is an executive coach and psychologist based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He has had a long and distinguished career in the field of psychology with over 30 years of experience helping individuals and organizations achieve their goals.
So it's clearly making stuff up.
Dr. Pasick earned his PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Michigan and has since gone on to establish himself as a leading expert in the areas of leadership development, organizational change, and executive coaching. He has worked with a diverse range of clients, including Fortune 500 companies, nonprofit organizations, and small businesses.
Wait, there's another 2 paragraphs.
In addition to his work as an executive coach, Dr. Pasick is also a published author and sought-after speaker. He has written several books, including Conversations with My Old Dog, Lessons Learned About Life, Love, and Aging, and Self-Aware, a guide for success in work and life. His books have been widely praised for their insights into personal growth and development. Dr. Pasick is also actively involved in his local community. He has served on the boards of several nonprofit organizations, including the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation and Washtenaw Literacy Organization. He is a regular contributor to local media outlets, has been featured in publications such as Detroit Free Press and the Ann Arbor News. Throughout his career, Dr. Passek has remained committed to helping others achieve their full potential. His expertise in psychology and leadership development has helped countless individuals and organizations overcome obstacles and reach their goals.
So Dr. Rob, how did it do?
It did great. It did great. I mean, I had a couple errors.
Couple errors, right? So what are the errors?
I didn't get my degree. I got my undergrad degree from
Michigan.
And my PhD from Harvard.
Harvard. Okay, you mentioned that earlier, so that's an error.
I hate sitting on boards, so I have not been on a board.
He's not been on a board. Good.
I think that's about everything. It didn't include Leaders Connect.
Didn't include, well, it didn't include Leaders Connect specifically. It got both these books right?
Yes.
Yep. Right?
Yeah, it's fabulous beyond that. I'm going to use it.
So, I mean, part of the reason I do this is to point out that, like, you know, if you were just, you know, if you just typed this in and didn't know the question, like, you would assume this was all true. It sounds really, really convincing, right? But baseball. Yeah. But it's got a bunch of errors in it, right? So it's not one sec. It's not. ChatGPT is great at writing convincing text. It's not great at getting real factual information correct, right? I've heard it called the ultimate mansplainer, right? It'll sit there and tell you with great confidence that it knows the truth, but it doesn't really know the truth, right? And so you got to be really careful when you get to factual stuff. But I recently was submitting an application for another panel, and I had to write a bio for myself, and I had ChatGPT write the bio, and then I went and edited it and corrected it and filled it in, and it saved me time on that. So we had a question.
How do you find the function of where you correct it? So it's output and you say, hey, this part is wrong. Can you change it to this? Because I found that to be very, very impressive as well, where you're like, you say, oh, you did all this, you didn't continue to edit within that.
Right. So there's two ways to do it. The more mundane way is you cut this, you paste it in, you go in and correct everything, right? The other way is what's called prompt engineering. So I can go, and I'll do this right now. I can take what I typed in, and I can add to it now, for example, you know, who got his PhD at Harvard, and then have it regenerate and see if it corrects that. So you can engineer the prompt, and for something like ChatGPT, what's interesting is so many, you know, millions of you know, computer cycles, billions, trillions went into training this thing that you can't actually retrain the model to correct facts. You've just got to give it a better prompt in order to use the model as is. So I'm going to hand over to Jack for a second to answer maybe if there are other questions. Meanwhile, I will try to do a better prompt that corrects some of the errors.
I guess I have to. Anybody have any other questions about this? Yes, please.
Yeah, what are some of the ethical considerations?
Oh, that's a great question. So the question, So the question was, are there ethical considerations, or what are the ethical considerations of this? And that's great. There are a number of really, really important ethical considerations. So I'm just going to randomly start with one, which is, where is the data coming from? The answer is all of you. Whether you have given it permission or not, whether you have legally given it license or not, it is all of your data because it is hoovering up all of the information on the internet. Right now, Getty Images, which is a large vendor of licensable images of photo that are used in magazines, is suing OpenAI, because I think it's OpenAI, because they hoovered up a large portion of the Getty image collection because Getty puts low-resolution watermarked versions of their images online, and they were all hoovered up. Now, Getty is incredibly defensive of their licenses because that is their business model. Totally stomped on that, and they've shown that they can use those images coming right out of Stable Diffusion, which is a video version. So that is one class, which is we are not intentionally giving license, but the systems are hoovering up our data also. The next question is, or the next wrinkle to that is, it's not just stealing Getty images and putting it in,
you can actually go in. It's particularly a problem in image generation, but it's also a problem in text. And say one thing that Mike didn't do is he did not say, please give us a biography of Dr. Pastig as read by Brad Pitt in the movie such and such. It can do that too. Again, it's the statistics. What are the terms associated with that actor in that role? And what's happening in the imagery world is there are lots of very talented freelance illustrators, filmmakers, artists, and you can go in and say, I would like an image with these characteristics done in the style of this currently alive, hardworking artist. And for some of the more popular artists, the internet is now flooded with imagery with their name on it that they didn't make.
You know about Drake?
No, I don't know about the Drake one.
Yeah. If you tune into Daily New York Times podcast, they made a recording of a Drake song, but it's a new song,
right?
And Drake and Weekend, and people can't. It's a big hit.
Yeah. So let me just pause because we could talk about the ethics all for a long time. But so those are two things that we should all be very aware of. First of all, we are providing data, whether we mean to or not. Any publicly available information out there is being sucked in. So there's ethical considerations around, for us, what we expose, and also that we understand what's being hoovered up, and also that when we see images, that the images may not have been made by the creator that we think they were. It may have actually be a stolen misrepresentation of that artist or writer, taking work away from them, right? If you have a very limited, and it's tempting, right? You've got a very limited budget, and you can't afford a freelance artist, but you know the artist you want to use, you can just go to Stable Diffusion and say, make me an image that looks like this, and it's pretty good, and you're not so fussy. All of a sudden, there's a big issue. So those are two ethical issues. Are you ready?
I asked ChatGPT what the ethical issues are.
Oh, great.
So let's get it. So I'll just read here. As an AI language model, there are several ethical concerns that have been raised about my technology and others like me. Some of the major concerns include bias. That's a good one, right? The data that ChatGPT gets from the internet has all the biases that information on the internet has, right? And so those biases are implicitly baked into ChatGPT. Privacy, which Jack mentioned, transparency, right? There's no way to know how ChatGPT works, right? That's to me one of the most scary things, particularly for our applications in the military. If you're building a system that has this kind of technology in it, and you're asking service members to trust this system with their lives, there's no way to go in and have the system explain to you how it's doing, why it's doing what it's doing, right? And because it's trained and you can't test it on every situational encounter, there's no way to know what it'll do in a new situation that it's never encountered before.
Isn't that the bigger ethical consideration being put out by Musk, that this technology may accidentally destroy all humankind?
Yeah.
I mean, bias is interesting, but destroying all humankind, even at a probability of 1,000th of a 1%, and Musk clearly thinks it's higher. That's a pretty big deal.
Yes, so here's the answer I've heard to that concern, which is the one I tend to like, right? Is that the risk of AI wiping out humanity is like the risk of overpopulation on Mars, right? At some point in the future, that may be a challenge we face, but that challenge, in my opinion, is so far in the future that it's hard to imagine what we can do today that will positively impact that very far future challenge. Now,
over 1,000 of the world's leading IT scientists and thinkers have signed an agreement with a very different opinion.
With a different opinion.
Over 1,000 of them.
Over 1,000 of them, but many of those people do not come from the field of AI. Now, that's the thing I know, right? Elon Musk is not an AI guy, right? Bill Gates is not an AI guy, right? A lot of these people, they're seeing this technology, they're projecting into the future, and the other thing that's interesting here is there's a pattern in AI development where the first 80% of the development goes very fast, and then the last 20%
goes super slow. This is what we've seen with self-driving cars, right? If you've been following the self-driving cars, right, everyone was like, we're going to have self-driving cars by 2025, right? That's because we were in that early stage where the development is going very fast, and they just assumed that that would continue to the solution to the problem. What we now see is that, they hit the point where the development levels out. They're in these small set of problems that are very, very hard for AI to solve, and they don't really know how to solve them. And this is resulting in a lot of the self-driving car companies actually now are crashing, and not the cars are crashing, are crashing. So, let's see. Just finish here. Job displacement is another ethical concern and responsibility that ChatGPT called out. So, and real quickly, interestingly, I went back. I tried to do some prompt engineering here. Write a biography of Dr. Rob Pasek, and I added he got his PhD at Harvard. So it didn't like that, right? It told me I was wrong, right? I'm sorry, there seems to be some conflicting information in your request. You're right. You mentioned Dr. Rob Pasek earned his, however, in this prompt you mentioned that he got, so it actually is picking up that I'm doing prompt engineering and asking me to clarify. There's no mention, right, so now I'm in an argument with ChatGPT.
I just wanted to add about Elon Musk and Bill Gates. It's also worth noting that there are two prominent technologists who have very large financial stakes in the fact that they're losing. Their companies are not involved in this revolution. Elon Musk is also a noted gadfly who likes to argue with anything in sight, so I personally don't take him arguing as anything more than a personality quirk. Now, that said, there are serious people
man in the history of the planet
who's lost more money in the last 3 years than anybody else in human history. So we can argue the merits and flaws of Elon Musk, but I don't think that's the purpose. That's a good overview.
He's the most successful businessman in the history of the planet.
Like I said,
it's a rhetorical technique. The guy who led the research at OpenAI is concerned about this concern.
There are a lot of concerns.
The guy who led the
research. You made your point, and this is a great overview during the networking discussion. We don't want to necessarily go down this particular rabbit hole. I'm just saying that it's important when we look to see who signs on to these things that we understand who they are and what their motivations are, as well as specifically what the argument is. Technology is a long history of people making big statements for their own personal good.
Could you also explain the word Hoover so I can use it later?
Oh, I'm sorry. When I said so earlier on, so the question was, can I explain the word Hoover? So what I meant by Hoover was just an analogy to vacuum cleaners and sucking up data. So that's what I meant. I shouldn't have used the colloquialism. So specifically what these systems do, and this is something that was actually pioneered by Google back 20 years ago at the dawn of the internet age, is to have a server or a series of servers that goes out and finds a web page and then looks to see what that web page is connected to, and then finds another web page, and does this at scale until it's been able to identify, if not all, a very large portion of the internet. Once it has identified all of those web pages, it then reads them and pulls the content into its databases, remembering where it got it and the associations both inside the page, this word comes after this other word, but also how many other websites like this website, that's the Google's PageRank algorithm. So the number one website that you'll see is the one that everybody else likes the most. It's actually more complicated than that. That's the basic idea. And so that, when I say hoovered up, that's what I'm referring to. And so Mike made this comment earlier that there are two, other than like AI folks like us coming up with new algorithms, the two large enabling technologies that have made ChatGPT and similar technologies possible is an internet where all data is now available, or when I say all, I mean so much data that it gets starting to approach all, and computer systems that have fast enough and enough storage to be able to process all of the data. Without those two things, it's almost impossible. And it's worth noting as we're kind of talking about that, because a lot of folks in this room are business people who are thinking about AI in business. There's this idea right now, that this is part of the hype cycle of AI, which is that AI is going to transform every business. There's a caution there. It'll transform every business where somebody else is paying for the data and the processing of the data. If your company can take advantage of the fact that OpenAI has the big server farms, or Google has the big server farms, and it can take advantage of all that data, that's great. And so writing biographies is a great example. If all of your data is not already on the internet, and there's a huge amount of work to gather that data, clean that data, process that data, you can still take advantage of AI, but there's a cost burden on your company to do that, or your organization to do that. So it's important when you're thinking about how AI can work for me, to think about what kind of data really matters, and is that data already available at scale? You think about the road networks that go into Google Maps or OpenMap or any of these map systems. You ever see those cars driving around with like cameras on the roof? Google can afford that. I can't afford that, right? So it's important to think about how much money has been invested in data collection, and to kind of think about that, where your organization fits relative to that.
So let's transition real quick to the applications in business today. So I'm going to use an analogy here. How many people here who work in or run a business, do you have people who do accounting or some sort of financial management for your business? Right? I'm hoping everyone's hands are up, right? How many of you don't let them use calculators? Right. So I go, what? Right. So if you have people who are managing the finances of your business and you're not going to let them use a calculator, you're hamstringing your business, right? This is going to be, in my opinion, the same tool in the future for everyone in your business who has to write more than probably a paragraph of text. So one of the things we do at SoarTech is we write proposals to our various government customers for research funds, right? And we had someone recently, there's a particular kind of proposal we write that's a small business set aside. Proposals are about 25 pages long. We had someone work with ChatGPT to write a proposal that they had written previously themselves. And they found that they could write, in their opinion, the same quality proposal in 1/5 of the time using ChatGPT, right? So a tool like this can really help accelerate that. We have a question in the back. You gotta stand up and project.
One thing I remember you guys talked about was the problems with closures in education, and specifically for professional problem. So I'm hoping you'll just touch on that.
So the problems in education and specifically students using, so I wish my wife were here because she teaches at Michigan, and this semester is the first semester she's encountered students regularly using ChatGPT to respond to some of the prompts. And what's interesting is she teaches computer science in the School of Engineering or School of Information, right? ChatGPT can generate computer code just as easily as it can generate text. And also, right, the computer code still has all the errors, just like the text does, right? So it's not perfect computer code, but so she's been, and she and I have been talking about this, like what's going to happen, right? How is she and is education in general going to navigate this, right? And it, so I was talking to a professor just yesterday in the computer science department, and here was the analogy he used, right? If you're an athlete and your coach tells you to go to the weight room and work out, right? Lift this many weights, this many times, this amount of weight, this many times, right? Say you invent a machine that can go do that for you, right? You can go into the weight room, the weight will get lifted the number of times that the coach specified, but you, the athlete, didn't get the benefit of that, right? So it really comes down to there's doing the assignment in order to get the end product and do the grade, and then there's doing the assignment in order to get the learning benefit of actually doing the assignment yourself. And that, to me, is the real issue, is you're going to have students who are doing the assignments with ChatGPT, they're not actually getting the learning benefit, and then, then there's the assessment challenge, right? When it comes time to do the test, how do you make sure the students aren't using ChatGPT on the test as well? So I think, it's going to be interesting. I don't have a great answer. We're going to have to figure it out. But I will observe that in math classes, my kids are in high school math, right? And they take a calculator to math class with them, and they take a calculator to the test, right? So somewhere in the past, the world of math education evolved to be able to figure out how to, use calculators in math. I think something similar's got to happen, but I don't have a slam dunk answer for how to make that work.
I just want to offer,
Stand up, please. Question.
I'm confronting this as well in my classes. I've got my first GPT submissions, not many, because my classes and my assessment strategies don't really allow for it. So what this really does is it points out weaknesses in assessment strategies.
Yes.
Professors are going to have to change, because the old way of letting them just sort of barf stuff back to you isn't going to cut it. And in my classes, I'm not GPT proof, but I'm most of them because I make them do authentic projects. Right. They have to do actual things, create companies, generate profit, do an event, and GPT won't do that for you. And I make them submit personalized reflections that are based on them personally and the things I've talked about in class. So one student tried to do this when I, even some of the stuff Dr. Rob does, I did something on self-care. And I got this meandering reflection about self-care, and it had nothing to do with the stuff I covered in class. It was very well written. But I was going to sit back to the student, I said, I would like you to stop using ChatGPT. They didn't have any comment back then, okay, right? So really the answer is you have to either do it my way, which is the projects, and it's harder. Right? Yeah. In the last 7 days, I have reviewed over 3,000 pages of student submissions. But that is how I feel it has to be done. You have to put in that work. If you're not going to do it, you're going to get rolled by this GPT thing. The other thing is, I've seen very clever professors using it in conjunction. Right. So a really good professor in Michigan will come into the class and say, in class today, in lecture, we will develop the prompt together for what essay you wanted to write. You will give me your prompt today. I will run all of these, and then bring you back the output, and then we will critique it in class. And that's great. So it's the human plus AI that you mentioned that I think is the real power.
And I think that's what needs to happen is, rather than saying, let's ban ChatGPT, you need to learn into, like, it's a tool, it's going to be available, it's, the cat is out of the bag. So let's work with students to help them learn how to benefit from it, and let's work on our assessment systems so that we're making sure that we're assessing what the students have learned and not just their ability to generate some specific output.
I got a question.
Yeah.
You talked about, you said SOAR has been doing this for 45 years. Can you talk about a little bit more detail what you do and how AI works in? I mean, you create something for soldiers. How do you do that? What is the process, and what's it evolved over the 25 years?
Well, I'll let Jack take that one.
Sure. So just to repeat the question was to kind of put this in the context of SOAR technology. What do we do, and how has that evolved over the last 25 years? So given that this is a short and discussion and there's no beer involved, I'll try to keep this brief, because if you get any of the old timers of SOAR tech, literally this is all we talk about. Because things have changed so much. So the first comment I'll say is that, let me tell you what SOAR tech got started doing. Because AI, contrary to some of the hype, has actually been around as a field of study for a long time. One of the jokes about artificial intelligence is to think about artificial intelligence like philosophy, which is as soon as it works, it's engineering. So there's a huge number of technologies that are in daily use everywhere that have come out of artificial intelligence research labs. But as soon as they're put to work, it's like, oh, well, that's just the thing that engineers do. Well, yeah, somebody had to invent that. So just to kind of put in context, kind of what we watch is the things that we're working on become kind of standard issue, and that's great. So what John Laird at the university was doing at the company is work coming out of the cognitive psychology and AI community to model certain classes of human decision making. How does the mind work? And building software that on one hand would allow you to test out psychological theories of the mind, and on the other hand try to apply that to model real people making real decisions. So John was doing work modeling fighter pilots for the United States government. It turns out that if you go to Raytheon or Lockheed or one of these other groups that make airplanes, they can give you really great models of the airframe, how it'll behave under certain stress, how it'll behave in weather conditions, and they don't know anything about pilots. They know how tall they are, but that's about, because they have to size the seat right, but that's about it. And so if you were to ask the question, what would be different if we made a jet that had these extra capabilities? Can you still hear me? Maybe it's just cut out.
This happens every time at this time of day. They're saying wrap it up.
Let me start. You don't want me singing. Yeah. So I hope I can talk loud enough to kind of talk through this. So John was modeling fighter pilots to be able to support simulations to help do experimentation for the government with these high fidelity models. So that's where our company started, was building very high fidelity models of certain classes of human decision making. And again, I'm happy to talk in more details afterwards. But over time, one of the ways that our company has evolved is we started with one core technology and expanded to cover a very, very wide range of artificial intelligence. It's not the case that one technical approach is appropriate for every one of our government customers' problems. Therefore, if we want to serve our customers, we need to broaden and be able to bring every technology available. It's also great that we keep hiring really smart scientists, smarter than me, who can come in and say, hey, did you know that there's this brand new paper that shows this thing and we can use it? All right, this is back. So
Just repeat everything you said.
So the new scientists will come in and say, hey, did you know, like, reinforcement learning just showed that you can do this thing? And we're like, oh my God, that's awesome, let's do that now. Like, so we're constantly bringing new technologies to bear. The other big evolution in our company, and this kind of matches a lot of society's expectations of AI, is that 25 years ago, if we went into a customer's office and said, let's talk about how AI can help you with our country's hardest problems, they'd look at us as if we were a philosophy professor walking in and saying, let's talk about how philosophy will change the face of government. Like, well, is that really? But today, we're getting calls from the government saying, we just tripled our AI budget. We're not 100% sure why, but we know it's important. Could you please help why this is going to change everything? And that's this major transformation from AI being kind of a sleepy, like kind of a part of a real important thing, but not necessarily in the limelight. Unfortunately, that has a lot to do with the hype cycle. There's a term in AI called the AI winter, which is a hype cycle happens, people get really excited. It turns out that it was really useful, but didn't change the world, and everyone gets disappointed. And Sortech has been through about 3 of these over 25 years. We're right now at not at the top of a hype cycle, but kind of climbing. But I will say this is just my personal perspective, and this is what I kind of mentioned earlier on, is that because of the generality of this particular class of technology, I think this is going to have a much bigger impact and much more staying impact across culture than a lot of the things that happened previously, which were important, but not necessarily as culturally impactful. And so that's one of the things I want to mention.
I'll do it. So I just wrote quickly, tell me about SWORD technology. It turns out Jack is a great ChatGPT predictor because he said pretty much all the same things. So, a company that specializes in artificial intelligence research, founded in 1997 by John Laird, a professor of computer science at University of Michigan, headquarters in Arbor, Michigan. Our mission is develop and apply intelligent software solutions to real-world problems. That's close enough. Cognitive architectures, which, as Jack mentioned, those are AI models of how human thinks. So, John Laird's research philosophy is if we want to build AI systems, one good place to start is the one super intelligent system we have available to us, right? If you want to build AI systems, let's study how humans think and then build computers that think in the same way. That is one approach. There are many other approaches. And so cognitive architectures are the implementation of psychological theories about how humans think into an AI system. So SOAR, cognitive architecture, that's the one particular one that John Laird has spent his career building, and the name of the company is based on that. I don't know how much of the rest of this is true. I'm not aware of us having done anything great with PTSD, so that seems kind of made up. We do get funding from DARPA and NASA, so yeah. Yes?
So how do you differentiate dysfunctional thinking?
How do we differentiate dysfunctional thinking? Right. So that's a great question. So we very much build what we call human-centered AI systems, which means systems that are going to be working closely with humans. Our philosophy is AI in the near term is going to be most useful helping humans make better decisions. So that means that the human's trust in the AI system is really important, right? And so dysfunctional thinking in our world is the kind of thing that might lead to mistrust. So we build a lot of explanation and traceability into our AI system. So with these cognitive architectures, one of the nice features is because it corresponds to how humans think, it's easy for humans to understand how the system, what kind of thinking the system did. So because you can inspect the thinking and the kind of the chain of reasoning, it's easier to detect dysfunctional thinking. So we can have our system, it comes to a decision, we can say, okay, tell me how you came to the decision. And it will generate, often in English, like ChatGPT, it says, okay, I was pursuing this goal, here's why I picked this goal, here was my plan, the steps I was going to take to achieve the goal, here's what I thought each step was going to achieve, here's the steps I did, here's the next step I'm going to do, and here's the progress I've made towards the goal. So when you can go in and see that level of explanation, dysfunctional thinking becomes more apparent and easier to correct. Now there are other systems that don't have that kind of system, and that's what I'm worried about too, right? And that's what we spend a lot of time at Sortech thinking about and one of our approaches is to build a system that basically can be like a governor on the AI system, right? So the other kind of AI creates a solution, and then our system, the system Jack built, takes that solution, tries to build an explanation of why that solution might be correct, and kind of can retroactively explain where that chain of reasoning might be, even if it doesn't actually do the chain of reasoning, so that we have some sort of confidence that the decision the system came up with is correct. So,
Mike, I think we have a mic just for a second. We have a request from Zingerman's to clear the room because there's a ton of people, families who have kids graduate, they need the space. And they were generous enough to give it. Before we do that, though, I just want to raise your hand if you feel this presentation really increased your knowledge. Okay. And raise your hand if you would come back and hear more from Mike and Jack. So Mike and Jack, I'd like to invite you back in June, maybe, to part 2 of this, because I think there's a lot of questions, and we're going to probably. I would also go to my son. I'll plug this as an editor of the newsletters in the New York Times, and they ran a 5-part series on this about artificial intelligence, including instructions about how to get on, what do you find out. So it's kind of a learning process, and so you can find that on the internet. I don't know exactly the title, but if you look at artificial intelligence, New York Times, you ought to get that series. And I'm sure there's many other publications that are good. But Adam, my son, is so involved in this. And he started looking at it. He said, Dad, I'm obsessed by this. And it's just so much you can learn. And I've used it already to edit. Like I edited my newsletter last week, and it was good. It cut a lot of my time, finding a comma, or it wasn't brilliant in a sense. It didn't add anything, but it did edit. So that's one use I've used. So what I'd like to do is have you clear the room, but there's a lot of space by the bar. And to go out there, or if you want to get a table, that you have breakfast, that would be fine too. But we do need to not have people linger in the room. And then one other thing before you do that, is Ferris here? Ferris, where's Ferris? Ferris, come in. Ferris has a book. What's your book, Ferris? Just shout it out.
The Power of 7.
The Power of 7. 7? Power of 7. And he's got copies of the book. Ferris has been working on this for years. And if you want to purchase it, how much is it, sir? $3. $3. And 3. You all at least make it 7. So thank you for Mike and Jack. Let's give a hand to them.
Oh man! Oh yeah. Thank you very much. That was great. Very good.